Thanks again for everybody being here. But I do need to correct something that Paul said, which was Hawkins' buzzword bingo. So there was one that was missed, but I'm going to do my best to actually pull that now into my presentation, so all of you that have been following on with the buzzword bingo, you're not left wanting with the one term. And the one term was digital twin. So I don't think you said digital twin, but I'll do my best to try to pull that into this presentation. So I've got a few minutes with you to talk about where we are with the products at a high level, where we think we're going and why we think it matters. And then certainly after this, as we move into the afternoon sessions, into the breakouts, you'll get a lot more detail about where we are with the products, get some demos, and certainly hopefully have time to interact with your peers here as well as with the different members of the Axway team. So the title of this is Exploring the Future of Ecosystem Integration. Now, Hawken also used the word ecosystem. Patrick talked about it as community, but it is certainly very fundamental to who Axway is and why we do what we do with our products and the problems that we prioritize ultimately solving. But we begin with this concept of our promise, our vision around open everything. Open everything we've been talking about now for a couple of years, maybe a few years. And it's the idea of your ability to kind of open your system, open your partnerships for more collaboration, for greater efficiency, hopefully leading you ultimately to more innovation and better outcomes. I think in the APL presentation, they talked about, look, if we have more integration, if we have more partnerships driving more transactions, ultimately that probably means our business is being helped financially. We're maybe driving more revenue, maybe we're offering more products, being more innovative, et cetera, et cetera. But to do that, it's kind of tough, right? So Axway has been around for over 20 years, and we have been in this business of enabling ecosystems. And these different sort of satellites or planets kind of hovering around Axway and the promise of open everything, things like different technologies like X12 or Swift or Edifact, certainly APIs and VANs, all of these different things. For the last 20 years, Axway has continued to evolve. And in your world, in the businesses that you run, you leverage these different technologies or these different documents to kind of create and grow and hopefully make more efficient or more vibrant the ecosystem that is ultimately your business. Now that sounds very Pollyannish or maybe kind of super way out there, but the reality is, I mean, when you look at under the covers, I mean, this is what everybody, most of you all are doing in this room. Some maybe with a couple of these things, some with 10, 15 of these different things, and some looking to invest more as time goes on. But you have the challenge of kind of like, how do we put these different pieces together? And I'll talk a bit more about that. Now, I don't think I need to explain what's on the slide to any of you here, right? We all kind of understand this. Whether you've been around for a few years or sometimes 20 years, the decisions that were made 20 years ago are still lingering around. I sat in some of the sessions yesterday for ST and B2BI, and it is really incredible to me the amount of very sort of detailed and nuanced use cases that you guys are all kind of battling on a day-to-day basis. And how do you get the products to kind of fit exactly with what you need? To, where do we, not just where do we find out where the file is, but why is this file taking so long to process? Or why is this thing getting stuck and not moving as fast as we thought? Or goodness, I heard of a scenario yesterday where a customer was talking about how they had applied the same host name across 100 of their partners and how were we going to deal with that problem. And good news was we had a way to solve it, but it was like, wow, that is a very difficult challenge that probably when we were building that product, we hadn't really anticipated that was going to happen. So in part of the spaghetti, it's partly our fault, our problem, but then now it's being applied into your enterprise and it becomes crazier and crazier, where inflexibility is a problem. You have the sort of global effects around disruption. And then there's just sort of the growth and the journey of cloud. So you have whether it's SaaS, whether it's modernization, whether that is to be more agile, but you've got all these things that ultimately layer up to like a business challenge. And then you have like this rush of like more stuff. So it's estimated that today, in this 24-hour span that we sit in right now on, June 14th, roughly 500 billion business-to-business transactions will be conducted. Also in that scenario it's estimated that for our traditional products, like a managed file transfer or a B2BI, that the analysts like a Gartner or a Forrester believe that in 2023, more than 50% now of those workloads will be running in the cloud. Now, some of you are maybe further than that, maybe some of you are behind that, but that's really essentially what the estimates from the analysts are predicting, that 50% now of these traditional B2B workloads are going to be delivered in the cloud. The analysts also predict in 2023 that 50% of just the transactions, not the workloads, but the transactions will be conducted now via APIs. In our European summit a few weeks back, we had on stage a multinational engineering and technology company on stage who do about $90 billion a year in turnover. They claimed that 85% of their revenue is actually EDI based. So the analysts are predicting that 50% of B2B transactions will be APIs this year, but we have a $90 billion European engineering and technology company where still 85% of that revenue is on EDI transactions. Now they have begun their API journey with us, and they expect more of it to be bleeding into that category. But the point being is that there is this convergence, right? Where the technology on how these things are ultimately done, whether that is like an X12 or it becomes a REST API or it becomes an async API or something else, that there is a convergence around the experience, a convergence around agility and the ability to do more with the investments that you have made, as well as where you're trying to go in the future. And that kind of brings us to where we have this view around how every business is evolving to become a platform, where these silos and sort of the Conway's Law structure of every one of our enterprises becomes like part of that spaghetti. So it's not just the technology spaghetti, it's the process spaghetti, it's the people spaghetti, it's the kind of how we get work done spaghetti. And so our thesis is that a marketplace, a single source of truth for where you can produce assets and send people to discover your assets, whether that is an order to cash flow, maybe that's an API for approving credit from an end consumer, whatever it may be, a marketplace is critical, such that you can grow that strong ecosystem and have the ability to ultimately connect anything. But the anything can be certainly enterprise applications, but more fundamentally for really where Axway has been for the last 20 years and where we expect to be for the next 20 is facilitating that integration and that connection of your ecosystem, which is really about your external partners. But in the end, you're gonna have to bring those external partners and those transactions and that business all the way back into your core infrastructure and into your core applications itself. And that really is kind of the nuts, or really the key essence of when we say open everything. That's really ultimately what it means. And so if every business is a platform, every platform should enable an ecosystem. Now this slide is kind of the amuse-bouche, right, for what you'll hear in the next day or this afternoon from the different breakout sessions. And they touch on some of the pieces that Patrick mentioned around our investments in the last year or more, in particular with the acquisitions or organically within the products. And so the first is the idea of connecting to any ecosystem. You'll hear throughout the sessions this concept of an Axway business network, where we're bringing to you all a more traditional, let's call it VAN, but it's incredibly API enabled, far more flexible, and offers you more out-of-the-box connectivity to broader partnerships and to greater ecosystems. The second is around low-code capabilities, which is the combination of our iPaaS acquisition and what we have been doing with managed file transfer. So we refer to that as intelligent MFT. There are certainly sessions about it. I certainly urge all of you all who have that product, MFT, to go out and see it and hear it and figure out how you can go further and faster with some of the things that maybe you've been asking from us for some time, but also maybe some things that you hadn't really considered or even thought that actually would be willing to provide. It's interesting with our journey around iPaaS. We've had a lot of inbound requests for the capabilities, and we've had at least one attempt at bringing an iPaaS into it. We've now essentially sunsetted the new strategy in acquiring DXchange, and a lot of what you'll hear from us now going forward is really not so much how are we trying to land an iPaaS on top of you, but how do we facilitate an iPaaS making what you've already invested in better and modernizing it as a platform going into the future. And the last is compliant with enterprise and government and country regulations. Patrick talked about Advolvus around our e-invoicing solution. We believe what we're doing there, which think of this as business to government type integration, is certainly the markets, and France in particular, are at the forefront for a lot of the standardization, but it is growing also in the United States, where a lot of you all in the various industries that you sit in will be certainly impacted by it, and then also open banking. Certainly it's a technology push, but there's also a series of regulatory outcomes that are kind of driving businesses to adopt and to deal with it. And so undergirding all that, you've got the idea of universal API management. So our multi-gateway strategy, all kind of moving up into a marketplace for complete visibility and discovery of your enterprise assets. Amplify integration, effectively the iPaaS coming into place, supported by the marketplace. And there's customers who are here that will talk about their adoption of the marketplace. You'll hear about how Amplify integration enables more of our solutions to do more. And then certainly the API management portion of the equation around sort of how do you take the sprawl of your lines of business and your developers bringing in other sort of APIs or API solutions that now need to be governed in a more holistic way across the entirety of your enterprise. And so in one big picture, when we talk about the future, we refer to this as the future of Amplify, but the reality is it's kind of the future for how each of the individual products and investments that we've made over time begin to kind of plug in, right? To facilitate more of a low-code experience across our products, to provide more synergy and consistency across the individual product lines. It may surprise you. Can I just see a show of hands? How many of you in here have 2 or more Axway products in your portfolio? Yeah, so it's about what I would expect. So maybe 50% of you have about 2 or more of different Axway products. And part of our belief is that if every business needs to be a platform, it's incumbent upon us as a product team to kind of normalize, right? Not a new normal, right, for the Axway portfolio. How do we bring these things together in a way that is more seamless and more consistent for you, such that where you are today, we're able to bring more value and more function, whether that is a new protocol, whether that is a new application into your portfolio, so that it's not necessarily like you're having to go basically get a new product from Axway, but it feels like it's a whole new company. And so Amplify in its evolution, previously it was more like we were going to bring in iPads and it was a whole new product. Now it's more like we'll sell you it if that's what you want, but realistically we want to bring the iPads to you as an extension for what you're already doing and offer you more value and a more holistic and ultimately seamless experience. And I'll end with this conclusion around the why of Axway. I started with open everything, but when we think about how we kind of measure the Axway journey, and it's not just the Axway journey, but it's the journey as we think as it's relevant to all of you, in the audience. And it may not be what you wake up and think of every day, but maybe there are some people in your organization who kind of think about this. So we believe over the last 20 years, right, we've been in the business of facilitating our customers to connect endpoints, partners, applications, flows, et cetera. So there's this concept of a composable ecosystem and the ability to have the number of businesses and endpoints successfully collaborating to work together. So part of our view is how do we reduce the friction? To not just do your job being how do I integrate with this partner, or how do I confirm that this file got through, or how do I extend my experience to developers or into a new mobile app, or integrate in different sort of startups or fintechs, healthcare providers, et cetera. How do we do that in a faster or more efficient way? And when we think about our products, platform, the fundamental thing that we start with our ask is, okay, what we prioritize, is it going to help us deliver on this North Star, right? Is it going to facilitate our products and the customer's use of them to integrate and connect more endpoints, right? More partners in their ecosystem? Because we believe that if we can do that, and we can do it with a great experience and with low friction, and you're needing to do that and you're wanting to do that, then it likely means you're growing, right? You're looking to innovate. You're looking to bring new products to market. You're looking to figure out new ways of ultimately differentiating. And so when we think about our products and our platform, this is a first question for us, and it is being spread across everything that we do. Now, to conclude, I didn't say AI and ML, and I didn't say a whole host of things, but maybe those are topics that are on your mind. So one thing I recommend is throughout this day, and if you're around tomorrow, come up and talk to anybody on the product teams, or GMs, or certainly myself, about where we see AI and ML playing in, automation, and the dynamics of these growing ecosystems, as well as digital twins, right? When we talk about that kind of spaghetti diagram, in many ways that is a digital twin of your enterprise, right? It's kind of the spaghetti that grows over time based upon how your business processes work, or really how even your organization is ultimately structured. Another great way during this thing is through user groups, but we run user groups outside of these events. So it's a great way to engage with the product team, to gather feedback, to provide your point of view, to certainly ask questions of the experts on how you can do certain things, how do you solve certain problems. And then the last is kind of the asynchronous AHA idea board. So if you all haven't used AHA, it is part of our community portal where you can go out and you can submit ideas, submit concepts to be added to the product line. You all as customers can go out and vote on good ideas and push them higher up on the board, and the product team is regularly kind of vetting and kind of proving out how we prioritize and move these products themselves. Now, we have an ongoing need to improve our response time, but I would say that in the last year, 50% of the ideas submitted into the AHA idea portals have either been delivered or are currently planned in our roadmap. So it is a very real thing in terms of delivering input to the product teams and ultimately what we are building. And so with that, I want to thank you all for listening and for sitting and paying attention to all this.